They laughed the moment she said she was going to marry him, not because he was poor, not because he was a bad man. They laughed because he was sitting in a wheelchair. Her friends told her she was throwing her life away. Strangers whispered behind her back. Even people close to her asked the same question. Why would a beautiful woman like you choose a man who cannot even walk? But they did not know what she knew. They did not know what this man had done for her when she had nothing. And they certainly did not know what was going to happen in the years ahead, because the same people who laughed at her wedding would one day be standing in front of her, begging for help. She had first seen Kofi Asante 2 years before the wedding, not as a patient, as the man who spent every Saturday morning reading to children in the pediatric ward. He wheeled himself from bed to bed. He had voices for every character. He stayed until every child was asleep or until visiting hours ended. He was 29 years old. He had been in the wheelchair for 2 years. A construction accident at 27 had taken the use of his legs. Before the accident, he was an engineer. He had been designing a bridge connecting 2 rural communities to a main road. The accident happened on a site visit. The bridge was completed without him. He watched its opening ceremony from a hospital room on a small television a colleague had brought in. He told Amara later that he had cried the week before. When his doctor confirmed he would not walk again, he cried for 3 days. Then he decided that mourning what his legs could not do was time stolen from what his mind still could. He went back to engineering from a wheelchair. When Amara saw him in that hospital corridor, she knew none of this. She knew only that a man in a wheelchair was giving a small girl the most animated reading of a folk tale she had ever witnessed. The girl was laughing so hard she had forgotten she was sick. Amara stood in that corridor for 11 minutes before she realized she had completely missed her own visiting appointment. She came back the following Saturday, not to visit a patient, to watch him read again. Drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you are watching from. And if you are not subscribed to Turning Point Tales, hit that subscribe button now. The wedding guests did not know this story. They knew only what they saw. A wheelchair, a bride who could have done better, a family too embarrassed to stop it. Aunt Abena gathered the women at the reception, said quietly but not quietly enough, "A burden dressed in a suit is still a burden. She will be pushing that chair in 5 years instead of living her life." Cousin Afua laughed, covered her mouth, looked at her phone, posted something. Amara's mother Grace sat at the head table with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She loved her daughter. She simply could not understand her. Kofi sat beside his wife at the reception. If he heard any of it, he did not show it. He had been hearing versions of it since the accident. He had learned to locate himself in what he knew to be true about himself, rather than in what strangers decided in 30 seconds. When it was time for speeches, he spoke last. He did not talk about the accident. He did not talk about what he had overcome. He talked about the Saturday he first saw Amara standing in the corridor outside the pediatric ward. He said she stood there for 11 minutes. He said he noticed on the 4th minute, but kept reading because the girl needed the ending. He said when Amara finally left, he told the little girl, "That woman is going to change my life." The girl asked how he knew. He said because she stayed for the whole story. The reception laughed, genuinely, even Aunt Abena. But they still thought what they thought. The first year of marriage surprised Amara, not because it was difficult, because it was nothing like what people had warned her about. Kofi worked from 6 in the morning. His water access project for 3 rural schools had attracted international funding. He managed a team of 11 remotely. He cooked dinner 3 nights a week. He remembered every small thing she mentioned. He was the most present person she had ever shared a space with. She told her mother this 18 months in. Her mother listened, then asked quietly, "But is he getting better?" Amara said, "He is not sick, Mama. He is in a wheelchair." Her mother looked at her, said, "You know what I mean?" Amara said, "No, I do not think I do." They sat in silence. Then her mother said something that surprised them both. "I want to understand. Help me understand." That was the beginning of something different between them. Year 2 brought the award. Kofi's water access project was nominated for one of the most significant infrastructure prizes on the continent. He did not tell Amara until the nomination was confirmed. He did not want her managing his hope. When he told her, she went very still, went to the kitchen, made tea she did not drink, came back. "You have been sitting on this." He said he did not want to say it out loud until it was real. She looked at him. "Everything you do is real." He won. The ceremony was in a hotel ballroom, 300 people. Kofi wheeled himself to the stage. He received the award in every way a person can stand, even when their legs cannot. The room gave him something between applause and silence. The specific response of people watching someone they underestimated arrive somewhere they should have believed in all along. Amara sat at the front table, her mother beside her. Grace watched her son-in-law receive that award and understood for the first time what her daughter had seen in a hospital corridor 2 years before the wedding. She reached over, took Amara's hand, said nothing. That was enough. Year 3 was harder, not because of the marriage, because of something happening inside Kofi that he had been carrying alone for longer than Amara knew. She noticed it first in small things. He worked later, stayed on calls longer, pushed every project further, said yes to every request. She asked about it one evening. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Every room I wheel into, they are already adjusting how they see me before I open my mouth. I cannot walk in and command a room, so I have to make them adjust after I speak." He said, "I am tired of working twice as hard to earn what other men walk in with." Amara looked at her husband. She did not tell him he was wrong. She said, "I know." She said, "But you married me, not their opinion of you." She said, "I did not choose you because I expected you to walk again. I chose you because of who you were in that pediatric ward before you ever knew my name. That man has not changed." She said, "Do not let them make you forget who you are just because they cannot see it properly." He looked at the table for a long time. Then he looked at her, said, "How do you do that?" She said, "Do what?" He said, "Say the exact right thing." She said, "I have been paying attention since a Saturday morning in a hospital corridor." He laughed. "Properly." The weight in the room shifted, not completely, not permanently, but enough. Year 4 brought the procedure. Dr. Mensah called them both in. Nerve reconstruction, proven in 4 countries, not guaranteed, a real possibility. Kofi asked for a week to think. They sat with it for 3 evenings. He said, "I do not need to walk to be who I am." She said, "I know." He said, "So this is not about the wheelchair. It is about whether the risk is worth it." She said, "Only you can answer that." He said, "I am asking what you think." She said, "I think you have been making decisions about your life since the day you chose to go back to work from a hospital bed. I trust every decision you make." He did the procedure. The recovery took 8 months, not smooth months, months of therapy that left him exhausted, sessions where nothing moved the way it was supposed to, evenings where he sat in silence and Amara sat beside him, and neither of them spoke because some things do not need words. On a Thursday morning in the 8th month, Kofi stood up from his wheelchair with a walker, shaking. He managed 45 seconds. Then he sat back down. He looked at Amara. She had her hand over her mouth. He said, 45 seconds. She laughed, cried, both at once. He said, next week I will do a minute. What the room understood in that moment, what Amara had understood years before, was that this man's value had never been in his legs. It was in the 45 seconds, and in the fact that he was already planning next week. Aunt Abena called the following year. Not about Kofi. Her son had been caught in a business fraud. Significant. He needed a lawyer, the specific kind who handled these things with discretion. Amara knew such a lawyer. She had worked beside him for 2 years before her marriage. Aunt Abena called Amara because Amara was the only person she knew connected to that world. The woman who had said a burden dressed in a suit is still a burden called the woman she had said it about. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Amara said, "Send me the details. I will make a call." She made the call. The lawyer agreed to take the case. Amara never mentioned the wedding reception, never asked for acknowledgement. She helped. Because real strength is not withholding what you can give from people who do not deserve it. Kofi had understood that since the day he chose to go back to work from a hospital bed, she had learned it from watching him. Cousin Efua came to the house 6 months later. She sat across from Amara and looked at the framed photograph, Kofi at the award ceremony. Then she looked at Amara, said, "I saw a wheelchair. I did not see him. I did not see what you saw." She said, "I am sorry." Amara said, "I know you are." She poured tea. Efua stayed for 2 hours. At the door, she stopped, asked what made Amara so sure. That day in the hospital, when she saw him reading to that girl, Amara thought about it, said, "He stayed for the whole story. Even when the child fell asleep, he finished the story." She said, "A man who does that for a stranger, that man will never leave you in the middle of yours." Efua walked to her car. She sat in it for a while before she drove away. The people who mocked Amara at that wedding looked at a wheelchair and believed they understood everything. They understood nothing. They did not understand that strength is not the absence of limitation. They did not understand that love is not a calculation, tallying what someone can and cannot offer before deciding if they are worth it. They did not understand that the man they called a burden was designing water systems for schools, managing a team from a wheelchair, finishing stories for sleeping children, surviving 8 months of painful recovery, standing on shaking legs for 45 seconds and calling that the beginning. Amara had seen all of this before any of them thought to look. That is what they had actually mocked, not her marriage, her vision, and when they came to her years later needing something, she gave it, not because she had forgotten, because the greatest thing Kofi ever taught her without trying was that what you do when people give you every reason not to is the only true measure of a person. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Turning Point Tales. We will see you in the next one.